The Nun 2 came out recently, and we gotta tell you, the ending is a real nail-biter. Let's take a look at what we're dealing with. So, after a 4-year gap from the original, we find Valak, the demon nun, is back on the prowl, having escaped from Romania by hitching a ride in Frenchie's body. This time, Valak's after the eyes of St. Lucy, which apparently grants some crazy power. When the church gets wind of Valak's mischievous plans, they send our trusty hero, Sister Irene, back into action, along with the new recruit, Sister Deborah, to France. Their mission? Stop the wicked nun in her tracks once and for all. Now here's the juicy part. Frenchie, who's now working at a boarding school, just so happens to be where these powerful eyes are buried. Talk about a small world, right? Irene and Deborah have to race against time to prevent Valak from getting her ghostly mitts on those relics. Long story short, things get seriously crazy at the boarding school. Irene and Deborah find themselves in a showdown with the nun after she snags the relic. But with some clever thinking, they manage to take down the monstrous nun once and for all. As for Frenchie, it looks like he's finally free from Valak's clutches, and the movie ends with a heartfelt farewell between him and Irene. But on the other hand, this ending also teases the possibility of Valak making a comeback in the Conjuring movies. So it's safe to say the scares aren't over just yet. Defeating Valak. All right, let's dive into a fascinating subplot from The Nun 2. You see, at the start, Sister Deborah was all about skepticism when it came to her faith. She needed some concrete proof, like a good old-fashioned miracle, to truly believe. She and Sister Irene even chatted about how their faith turned wine into the blood of Christ during communion. Now, fast forward to the thrilling climax in the boarding school's creepy cellar. Deborah's seen some pretty wild stuff by now that's made her rethink her doubts about God and the devil. But the real turning point comes when Irene miraculously survives being set on fire. That's when Deborah declares it a miracle and her faith gets a major reboot. The two nuns join forces, start praying like there's no tomorrow, and do something pretty darn miraculous themselves. They turn those wine barrels into the blood of Christ, and bam, the barrels go kaboom, showering the nun in what seems like holy red wine, and she starts melting like a wicked witch. While they've given Valak the boot for now, we all know these demon types have a knack for coming back. So, don't be too shocked if Valak makes a spooky return in one of those upcoming Conjureverse movies. The supernatural world is full of surprises. Why does Valak want St. Lucy's eyes? So, let's delve into a bit of history here. St. Lucy, a Christian martyr from way back in the 5th century, is the go-to patron saint for folks with vision troubles. What's unique about her story is that some versions claim her eyes were either removed by her own hand or by her persecutors. Now here's where it gets even more intriguing. Some say they tried to set her on fire, but the flames just wouldn't touch her. Eventually, she met her end when a sword pierced her neck. But the jaw-dropper comes during her burial preparations. Despite her eyes supposedly being gouged out, they mysteriously reappeared. It's this miracle that earned her the title of patron saint for the blind. Now fast forward to The Nun 2, where Valak, the demon nun, is on the hunt for St. Lucy's eyes, believing they hold divine power. The movie suggests that Valak was once an angel banished by God, and by recovering those peepers, it hopes to regain its lost powers. Exactly what Valak plans to do with these newfound abilities is a bit of a mystery, and although the demon manages to absorb them, it doesn't quite get to enjoy the benefits for long before getting a divine smackdown. So it's a whirlwind of supernatural twists and turns rooted in centuries-old legends. Who knew St. Lucy's eyes could be at the center of such eerie intrigue? Is Sister Irene related to Lorraine Warren? All right, let's talk about the burning question that's been on everyone's mind since the first movie. I mean, the casting of Taissa Farmiga, who's Vera Farmiga's younger sister, seemed like more than just a coincidence, right? So here's the deal. The Nun 2 doesn't exactly drop a bombshell confirmation, but it does give us some pretty strong hints. Throughout the sequel, Irene keeps having these trippy visions of St. Lucy's martyrdom, and it dawns on her that she's actually descended from this holy figure. But it doesn't stop there. She starts having quick flashes of other family members, including her mom, and hold on to your hats, a super brief glimpse of Lorraine. Now, the movie doesn't go all in on this revelation, but come on, the implication is pretty clear. Irene and Lorraine are likely part of the same supernatural family tree. It's looking less likely that Irene is a younger version of Lorraine, though, because their backstories don't quite sync up. But here's the kicker. You just know that a future entry in the Conjuring universe is going to spill the beans and lay out their family connection once and for all. So, stay tuned for more ghostly family drama. What happened to Father Burke? So, remember Father Burke from the original Nun? Well, he's nowhere to be found in the sequel, and it turns out he won't be making a comeback in the Conjuring universe anytime soon. The Nun 2 drops a bit of a bummer. It reveals that Burke went on to become a bishop after the first movie's events. Sounds like a step up, right? But here's what's sad. He kicked the bucket from cholera not long after that promotion. That's why the church addresses Irene as the only person who has survived a supernatural incident like this. So they basically tap her on the shoulder to deal with all the spooky stuff going down in the sequel. Tough break for Father Burke, but it sets the stage for Irene to dive back into the world of supernatural horrors. This ending sets up Nun 3. What could the ending mean for a possible Nun 3? By the time the credits roll, Valak's been shown the exit once again thanks to a good old dose of the blood of Christ. Frenchie, after a 4-year demon-induced timeout, seems to be back to his old self. But hold on, there's a catch. Valak is the big bad in The Conjuring 2, which happens 2 decades after the events of The Nun 2. So it's pretty clear that this demon's defeat isn't permanent, although it seems to have lost the extra mojo it got from St. Lucy's eyes. The Warrens, those famous paranormal investigators from the Conjuring series, end up doing an exorcism on Frenchie, so it's safe to say he wasn't entirely rid of Valak's influence. Now, considering the Conjuring universe has been around for a solid decade, there might be a move to bring the Nun back into the main Conjuring storyline. That could mean we see the Warrens in The Nun 3, or Valak might just make a comeback for The Conjuring 4. Either way, it's bound to be another supernatural roller coaster. The mid-credits scene. All right, let's chat about that sneaky mid-credits scene in The Nun 2. So it takes us back to the Warrens' place, where Ed Warren, played by Patrick Wilson, gets all intense on the phone with a priest. It's a short scene and leaves us hanging a bit. The thing is, it doesn't give us much to work with in terms of context. We're left wondering, when does this call happen in the timeline? Is it setting the stage for their first showdown with Valak in The Conjuring 2? Or is it about the exorcism they did on Frenchie from the first Nun movie? Some even think it might be teasing a 4th Conjuring installment, though Ed looks noticeably younger here than he did in the 3rd movie. Maybe the filmmakers are leaving things a bit vague to keep us guessing as they cook up the next spooky chapter. It's like a mystery wrapped in an enigma, right? What message does the ending give us? It's all about having faith, even when the odds are stacked against you. Sister Deborah starts off a bit skeptical about her whole nun life, but after witnessing Irene miraculously surviving a fiery ordeal, she's also convinced that there are some bigger powers at play. It's a real faith-restored moment for Deborah, as she comes to believe in a higher power and the idea that good can triumph over evil, no matter how grim things seem. Irene, on the other hand, has to keep the faith that her friend Frenchie can be rescued from Valak's clutches, even when it seems like mission impossible. But guess what? By the end of the story, Irene pulls off the miraculous. She saves Frenchie and the entire crew at the boarding school from Valak's grip. Well, at least for the time being. It's like a powerful reminder that faith can move mountains, even when you're dealing with demonic nuns and supernatural shenanigans. That brings us to the end of today's video. What did you think about the movie? Let us know in the comments below. If you haven't already, then please like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.